Alright, hello YouTube and welcome to a brand new set of videos. I'm going to be doing not a let's play but rather a tutorial session on LightWave modeler, or LightWave 3D rather. Now when you install the program, it will be installing not two separate programs, but it'll actually put two separate applications. So you'll have two shortcuts on your desktop or wherever you choose to put them. In my case, I've put them on my taskbar here. And one of the applications will be called Modeler, as you can see here, and the other one is called Layout. Now, for now, we'll be sticking to Modeler because that's what we're going to be paying attention to for the beginning. And when you open it up, you should get something like this. Now it might look slightly different. For example, you might have this window over here, and these might be switched a bit, but it's roughly the same. So you shouldn't have to worry about that too much. So let's try and start off kind of basic with what we've got here. Everything looks very complex because there's a lot to see. But if you just take a look and read real quick, we've got create, multiply, modify, detail, construct, map, setup, selection, layers, view, input and output, utilities. For this session, we'll be sticking to create. Later on, we'll be taking a look at modify. Then after that, we'll take a look at multiply, and detail, construction, and map are not quite as important. Construction is useful, and map will become useful later on. Setup will become useful much later on, but we won't have to worry about that until that time comes. Alright, so the way this program works is here we have different perspectives. Now under this tab here, it says perspective. This is a fully three-dimensional perspective. It allows you to see what it is you're creating. Using the arrow key, you do have the ability to drop down and change to a different type of perspective. But we'll keep it to this because we want to see what we're creating. Here it says top, which means we're viewing our object from the top. Here we have right, so we're viewing it from the right. Here we have front, so we are viewing it from the front. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have here. Under the Create tab, you'll have primitives. Primitives are your basic shapes and objects. You'll notice I also have a tree plugin, and I have something called Star Pro. These are plugins that I've added in. You won't have these on default. You can download them, they are free. But I wouldn't download Star Pro because Star Pro kind of sucks. But Tree plugin is a really good one for making trees real quick. But these we'll have to get into much later on because that's all the way on utilities, and that's where we start dealing with plugins. But under here we have primitives and we have a box. We're going to be dealing with the box tool. Now the way these work is the top selection, so in this case the box tool, is considered the most used tool. The bottom selection, which is plot 2D, is the least used tool. Personally, I've not used plot 2D ever before. I'm not sure what it does, but I haven't had the need to use it. Maybe I should search up on it and maybe I'll find a use for it, but lately I haven't been needing anything. So what you do is you select the box tool, and you'll notice that it's been highlighted. You'll also notice that your cursor has changed. By default, it'll look like something like this. Once you click on the box tool, you'll have a three-dimensional box as a cursor. Now, what people have a tendency want to do right off the bat is use the perspective mode. And what you could do is click and drag, and instantly you can start creating something. However, I discourage you to do this, and there's a good reason as to why. See how little control I have over this? I've got some control, but I can't quite tell what I'm grabbing all the time. And when things start to get really complex, using perspective mode is a very bad idea. Perspective mode you should only ever use to look at your object, not to create your object. So let's delete that. Instead, we will be using these other 3 panels here to create our object. So with the box tool selected, let's click and drag on one of these panels. In this case, I'm choosing front. Now you'll notice that I've started creating something. In perspective mode, you won't be able to see it, or you will be able to see it. This is because this is not a 3-dimensional object. This is actually a 2-dimensional object, meaning that it has no thickness to it. That's why one side of it is completely invisible, but the other side is a solid color here. So in order to take this 2-dimensional object and change it into a 3-dimensional object, we then have to click and drag in one of these other viewports. So for example, if I take the top viewport here and click and drag out this direction, I now caused it to do that. By pressing Ctrl Z, I can undo my changes, and I'll show you what happens if we go with the right. As you can see, we bring it out like that. So once you have your basic creation made, in this case we're just making a simple little box, we are currently in the commitment stage. This is a stage at which we have the ability to change the basic shape of our object with ease, basically. We have a lot of control over how our object is shaped in this mode. However, it's not the finalized mode. In order to exit out of the commitment stage, you must press space. You will notice that certain cursors may have disappeared. If you do not have those cursors before, that is fine. You may just be missing a setting, which we'll be going over in due time. However, now you will notice I am unable to adjust or change any of these shapes or change any of its size in any way. This is because I have exited the commitment stage. I have fully committed to this object. However, I can still modify it. We'll be getting into modify soon enough, but for now we'll just stick to basic tools. So if I want to make 2 boxes, again, we go over with the same steps. Click and drag one panel, then click and drag in another. Get used to knowing where one object is in your scene so that you can create other objects where you want to create them. Sorry, I was doing a couple advanced things there. So let's say if I wanted to create another box directly corner to corner on this corner here. By utilizing the top view and one of these side views, I was capable of creating a 3-dimensional object that was corner to corner with my other box. If I had attempted to do that with my perspective view, for example, I would not succeed nearly as well. And in fact, it's actually really difficult. So it is mandatory that you learn and you get used to using perspectives to model and create your objects. This mode is simply so you can see what you're making. In fact, we do not even need it. I can tell that my box is right here. I can see it. I may not be able to see a full 3-dimensional image of it, but I do get each side, and that's enough. However, it is nice to keep this. This is useful, and it'll prove a nice aid for when you're creating things and you can actually see your creation come to life. However, later on we will be using perspective mode to aid us in our creations. So perspective mode does have a usefulness to it. Now let's get on to selecting things. Selecting things is very important. It allows us to manipulate and change things, even delete things properly. For example, if I were to create another box here, press space to commit. What if I wanted to delete this box, but not delete this box? Well, if I were to press the delete button right now, I would get rid of both. The reason why is because I have everything unselected, and as a result, everything will be deleted. By pressing Ctrl Z, I can bring back my objects. However, what if I just want to delete this box and this box alone? That can be done by selecting. Selecting is done by clicking on a side, or hold on, I should probably explain more so about the different modes of selecting. You'll notice that for every time you press space, your cursor will change ever so slightly. So there it has 4 lines on it, 2, and then another 4. This is very important, and you'll also notice here that we're changing which mode we're in. Every time we press space, it changes what mode we're in. Now, the mode I'm currently in is called polygon mode. A polygon is a 4-point poly. It can go down as low as 3 point, or it can have multiple points. But the most generic polygon is a 4-point polygon. In point mode, we can prove this if we switch over to point mode by holding down the left mouse button and selecting these 4 points. These 4 points create this polygon. Now, how to select things works for every single mode. Just simply left click and hold down. So in edge mode, we can select edges, for example. And in polygon mode, we select whole polygons. And start to practice using these different modes, and by selecting different things. Perspective view is very good at giving you the ability to select specific points and specific polygons. However, in many cases, it's still suggested to use your other panels to select things. Even though perspective does give you great opportunities to select things. For example, if I wanted to select the top here, if I were to try that using one of these sides, for example the right panel, and I wanted to select the top, which here is clearly this polygon here, if I were to select that, I have actually selected this side, and the top. Now I only have the top selected. So that's something you must keep in mind when you are selecting using the different viewports. So for example, if I wanted to select the top, which in the top view is clearly this, if I were to click and drag over the top of this, I would select the top, the bottom, and the side, which is not what I wanted. I just wanted the top. Now let's get along to deleting things. What if I wanted to delete just the top? Well, I would first select the top and then simply just press delete. I've effectively deleted this polygon. Now because this is a 3D object, this object has no inside. As a result, the inside is invisible. All of these walls are actually two-dimensional, but they are all pointed outward. If you wanted to point them inward, you would have to press F. F is the shortcut key for for flipping a polygon. However, flipping a polygon does not make it three-dimensional. As you'll see on the other side, it is still completely transparent. Let's flip it back, and let's press Ctrl Z to cycle through until we have our polygon back. If I wanted to delete this entire cube, I would have to select every single polygon or every single point. It must be noted that you cannot delete edges. Or, apparently you can. But I would not suggest it, because that's kind of freaky. In the older versions of LightWave, I remember not being able to delete edges. But you can delete points. For example, you can go like that, delete a point. And if you delete all the points in an object, there are no longer any points to create a polygon. If there's no points to create any polygons, you don't have an object. And obviously, if you delete all the polygons in an object, you have no object. So that is how you delete things without deleting your entire scene. Once again, always press Ctrl Z if you want to undo any mistakes you make. And within the next few episodes, we'll be going over modify, which will allow us to move. It'll allow us to drag. Oh, I'm doing things wrong now. It'll allow us to drag. Select and move. It will also allow us to size, as well as to stretch. And all of these tools will become extremely useful and extremely powerful for when you are modeling your own character, modeling buildings, or even modeling just generic things. I hope you have enjoyed this first tutorial video, and please do look out for more. I will be trying to make them on a regular basis, and next time we'll be looking at the modify panel.